So, what if I told you that one of the best guides for getting through your own personal crises was written thousands of years ago on a battlefield? Today, we're jumping into the Bhagavad Gita, but we're not just looking at it as ancient history. We're treating it as a real, practical playbook for what to do when you're facing overwhelming doubt and need to find your way forward.
All right, so picture this. The massive, epic battlefield of Kurukshetra. You've got two huge armies staring each other down. On one side, the Pandavas, who are fighting for what's right. On the other, their cousins, the Kauravas. We're talking millions of soldiers, all the legendary warriors of the time, ready for a war that's going to decide everything. You can almost feel the tension in the air. And then, just as things are about to kick off, something totally wild happens. Arjuna, the greatest archer alive and the Pandavas' star player, just stops. He refuses to fight. The entire war grinds to a halt because of him. So the big question is, why? Why would a hero, a warrior, give up at the most important moment of his life?
Okay, so let's get right into it. To really get the wisdom of the Gita, you first have to understand just how deep Arjuna's crisis goes. I mean, this isn't just a little hesitation. This is a full-blown psychological and spiritual meltdown. So Arjuna asks his charioteer, who by the way is actually Lord Krishna in disguise, to pull the chariot right into the middle of the two armies. And when he looks out at the enemy lines, he doesn't see strangers or villains. He sees faces he knows. He sees his own grandfather, his beloved teacher, his uncles, his cousins. All of a sudden, this war isn't some abstract battle for justice, it's personal.
And you can just hear the pain in his voice when he cries out to Krishna. He says, "I don't want to win. What good could possibly come from killing my own family?" The very idea of winning, something he'd been preparing for his whole life, now just feels totally empty and horrible. And this isn't just an emotional breakdown. Arjuna actually lays out some pretty logical arguments. He's worried about the sin of killing his own relatives. He's thinking about how destroying the family will tear apart their traditions and lead to total chaos for society. So he's completely stuck, paralyzed by both his heart and his head. And it all just becomes too much. The weight of it all literally crushes him. He drops his famous bow, the Gandiva, and just collapses in his chariot, completely overcome with grief. This is his absolute lowest point. And it's right here in this moment of total crisis that the real teachings of the Bhagavad Gita finally begin.
So how does Krishna handle this? Well, he doesn't give him a pep talk, he doesn't talk strategy. No, he goes way deeper. He starts by completely flipping the script on what Arjuna thinks about life, death, and who he even is.
This is one of the most mind-blowing opening lines ever. Krishna basically looks at Arjuna and says, "You're grieving for the wrong thing." He's telling him that the real problem isn't the war itself, but the way he's looking at it. He's about to introduce a whole new reality.
And this is the core of it. Krishna breaks down the difference between the body, the shariram, and the soul, the atma. He explains that the physical body, well, it's temporary. It's born, it dies. It's just a vessel. But the soul, the real you inside, that's eternal. It was never born, and it can never, ever die. Weapons can't touch it, fire can't burn it, it just is. What this means is that the true self, the soul, can't actually kill anyone, and it can't be killed. This is Krishna's first step to lifting that heavy burden of grief from Arjuna's shoulders. He's trying to get him to see past the temporary physical bodies of his family and friends to the eternal, indestructible soul that lives within each of them.
Okay, so that's a pretty huge philosophical idea, right? But what does it mean in the real world? How are you supposed to live your life knowing this? Well, that brings us to Krishna's next game-changing lesson.
Krishna introduces this incredible concept called karma yoga, the yoga of action. And it's a total paradigm shift. He tells Arjuna that the answer isn't to run away from his problems or his duties. The answer is to change why and how he does them. It's all about doing your job, doing it with all your skill and dedication, but, and this is the key part, letting go of what happens next. You do the work, but you're not attached to the results, whether it's winning or losing, fame or fortune.
So the process is actually pretty straightforward. Step 1, you give up your attachment to the outcome. You stop worrying about what's in it for me. Step 2, you just do your duty, whatever that may be, to the best of your ability. And the result? By doing this, you're on the path to spiritual freedom, to what the Gita calls attaining the supreme. So for Arjuna, the message is crystal clear. Fight. Not because you want the kingdom, not because you're afraid of being called a coward, but simply because it is your duty, your dharma, as a warrior to uphold what is right.
This way of thinking takes all that personal pressure, all that anxiety about the future right off the table.
But, just doing your duty without caring about the results could feel a little cold, maybe even a little empty. So Krishna adds one final beautiful layer to it all. He gives this path of selfless action its ultimate purpose.
This really gets to the heart of it. Why should you do your duty? Who are you doing it for? This is where Krishna reveals his divine nature to Arjuna and introduces the path of bhakti yoga, or the yoga of devotion. He explains that the highest way to act is to do everything as an offering to God. And this is the ultimate instruction right here. Krishna tells Arjuna, think of me always, be my devotee, offer everything you do to me. When you do this, every single action, even something as intense as fighting a war, gets transformed. It becomes a sacred act. This gives you a reason, a motivation, that's so much bigger than your own personal wins and losses.
So, we've had this incredible, deep conversation covering everything from the nature of the soul to the path of action and devotion. What's the final result? Let's go back to Arjuna on that battlefield and see what's changed.
The change is just astounding. He goes from being this broken man saying he doesn't want victory to a state of total peace and clarity. After Krishna shows him his divine form, Arjuna says his mind is calm and he feels like he's back to his true self. All that confusion and despair, it's just gone. That paralysis is completely broken. He gets it now. He understands he's an eternal soul, that his duty is to act without being attached to the outcome, and that he can offer all his actions to something higher. His doubts are destroyed, his purpose is clear, and he picks up his bow, looks at Krishna and says, I'm ready, let's do this.
And really, that's the whole point. The battlefield of Kurukshetra is a giant metaphor for our own lives, isn't it? For those moments of crisis where we feel lost, confused, and just totally overwhelmed. The Gita gives us this amazing, timeless roadmap for getting through it by changing our perspective, focusing on selfless action, and connecting to a higher purpose.
And that kind of leaves us with one last big question to think about. The Gita pushed Arjuna to figure out his true purpose when faced with an impossible situation. So, the question it leaves for all of us is this. In the middle of our own life's battles, what is our true duty, and how can we find the strength to carry it out?